What's up, Smite fans? Dolson here, and Season 9 of the SPL is shaping up to be maybe the best ever. And to help us get there, we're partnering with Alienware to provide us, our players, the production team, with state-of-the-art gear to make this year one of the best yet. But don't take my word for it. Let's hear what the pros have to say.
As a professional player, it's super important to make sure that you just have the absolute highest quality gear and peripherals that you can ever get. And having an Alienware PC has completely upped our game here at the SPL.
It's really nice being able to play from the same PC from home into the studio, and I highly, highly recommend it. It feels great to play on.
So I really enjoyed using Alienware computers because, one, I'm a streamer, content is my job, and the power of the Alienware PCs is like amazing. It's perfect for everything that we need to do.
I stream 1080p, no problem. I have no issues with FPS, no frame lag or anything like that.
64 gigabytes of RAM is just something that you can only dream of, and like it helps so much with processing like anything that you need to perform, like multitasking, whether it's streaming, recording, gaming, like everything all at once, and it's been a very smooth experience.
As someone who doesn't enjoy building my own PC, the Alienware's kind of got everything in one machine. It was super easy.
I really like the pre-built Alienware as well because it's really hard to get a graphics card on the market currently.
A 3090 is like impossible to obtain, so being able to play on it has been honestly a very lucky experience.
Back in the day, I used to game and do all my content on a really pathetic laptop, and once I actually was able to get an Alienware PC, there's just no turning back.
For a lot of players that were used to just their home setups and maybe didn't have top quality products, going to such a huge upgrade with our Alienware PCs has just absolutely increased the quality of our practice.
I'm just a big fan of Alienware. I think they're the top of the line PCs literally for a reason.
It's definitely the best PC I've ever had by a long way.
Shoutouts to Alienware, great company, love them a lot.
And I have nothing but praise for the product.
That's high praise from some of the best gamers in the world. So thanks again to Alienware for powering us this year in Season 9 of the SMITE Pro League. And remember, if you want to get your hands on some of the gear that our pro players play on, make sure to check out Alienware on all of their socials and at their website as well.
I think if I didn't have my Alienware, I would go out and purchase one right now.
Back to the SMITE Pro League here in Week 2 of Phase 3, brought to us and powered by our good friends over at Alienware. So, if you want to play on the top-of-the-line gear that our pros are playing on, make sure you go over to Alienware or smitegame.com/Alienware and use code AWSMITE09 to get your hands on the sweet gear that's out there. Top-of-the-line graphics card, more RAM than you probably ever know what to do with on there. Be able to stream and play all of your games at the highest quality possible. If you can't take my word for it, like I said, take it from the words of the top of the line in the SMITE Pro League. They're playing on the same PCs at home that they're playing on the studio, and that our production uses to be able to put on our production for the SMITE Pro League in general. So thank you so much to Alienware for coming back in Season 9 of the SMITE Pro League. My name is J-Mac. I got Hurry Win still joining me now on the desk as we get ready to jump into our second set of the day. An unexpected first one to go the way for the Valhalla Valkyries with a 2-0 their way. Maybe you can see now if the Scarabs can keep that maybe unexpected trend rolling as they take on the Camelot Kings.
Yeah, they don't have a lot of time. They got to start figure out, World's just around the corner. They got to figure it out. So I'm excited to see, the progress they've made, and even just the last week, like we said, they don't have the most time ever. So I'd love to see this progress early and fast, and I'm excited to see where they're at.
Yeah, it's something that we kind of talked on with the waiting room a little bit with the Scarabs. It was, they didn't have the best performance, but they still looked okay. They didn't look too bad for their first week together as the full team in the kind of competitive aspect, able to take a game away from the Bolts. Now the Valkyries have been able to take a full set away from the Bolts. And we'll get to kind of see a look at the rest of our day and our weekend as we go ahead and jump over to the schedule right quick. Like I said, if you missed out on the first set, go back and watch it because you might not believe the two that's on the screen there, seeing Valkyries versus the Bolts, but they did get their first set win of the phase. Only took them a week to do so. And that would be the Solar Scarabs, the Camelot Kings to round out our day today. We'll start back up with the Titans and the Valkyries to see if the Valkyries can keep their trend going through. And the Oni Warriors will be the next ones to try and see if they can defeat the undefeated Jade Dragons and finally put that first blemish on the record of that team. And then our triple header Sunday full of action-packed games. So make sure that you are sticking around for Week 2 of this third phase because it is sure to have some great matchups all throughout here. But looking at the standings with it, Jade Dragons Oni Warriors remain at the very top. And for one of the first times in the Valkyries franchise history, we're seeing them up in that top 5 right there, tied alongside with the Tartarus Titans right below the Kings and the Leviathans. We'll see if we can keep some of those trends going upward for these teams and maybe see if we can have the Titans or the Bolts rise themselves back up Or can the Solar Scarabs find that upset? Because they're going to be facing off against the Camelot Kings for this second set in the matchup that we're going to kind of dig into a little bit now. And I think kind of the best one to really kind of dig with these teams, Hurrywind, is to kind of talk about the supports. Because on one side for the Scarabs, you have Yarkor, went from that solo lane, played over in ADC for a little while, went back to the solo lane, now moved himself over to support. But he's going up against a long-standing support and one of the biggest minds in the support role, one of the biggest theory crafters in the Pro League in genetics on that side. Camelot Kings, this is a team that really thrives on trying a bunch of new things and seeing it kind of just what sticks to the wall when they throw it out there.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm a genetics fan, and to be honest, I'm a Jarkor fan too, at least when he played solo. He's going to have to, continue to work on himself. He's looked pretty good for a recent role swap. I've been thoroughly impressed with him, but I'm not quite a Jarkor support fan yet. So maybe today's the day I become one. We'll see how he does. He's against one of the best supports in the league. A very, clever, most of the time, mind over there on the Kings. So I'm curious to see, how Jarkor matches up against him today.
Yeah, Yarkor, I mean, he's been singing to a lot of the standard for the support role in just the few games that we've seen him so far. But he's going up against Genetics on the Camelot Kings. We've got Gormizer standing by for a pregame interview to talk to Genetics.
I've got Genetics standing by for the pregame interview. And the first question, kind of just simple for you, is just last week, maybe not the performance you guys wanted against the Dragons. What were kind of your thoughts on that matchup, and what have you changed coming into this week?
Dragons beat us pretty badly last week, even with the role swap, which is pretty demoralizing. But it's just a good shake-up call. I mean, we had one last week practice than other teams, which is like, that's our excuse, But it's just like getting better, and I think they learned a bit more about the method than we did. And it's just like shaking us up a little bit to catch up with other teams like the Dragons.
Yeah, it gets the fire burning, right? Like just the motivator for you. You guys are going to be going up against the Scarabs. I actually wanted to ask you specifically because Harkor's over there, so it's like your first time matching up against him in this role. Does that change anything for you in your matchup and your game plan, or is it going to feel pretty similar?
Well, usually like when you play against people for so long, you usually like figure out styles. So like I can usually recognize Smurfs, like Gamma Smurf. I know it's him sometimes. Like Yarkor's a sick ranked player, so I know a little bit, but it's like very hard to tell in comp until I play against him a little bit.
It'll be fun. This will be the experience for you guys. I'm sure everyone's ready to get into the game. So thanks for the time, man. Good luck in your games. We'll throw it back to the desk to break this one down.
I think that's some important words to come out there is, whenever you stick around the scene for so long, when you play against some of the names that are out there, whether they're playing on their mains, whether they're playing on their sports, kind of messing around and whatnot, so usually you can kind of lock down who it is right away, kind of know that play style. But for Yarkor going to support, it's kind of a whole new look from him. You go from the ADC style, this support role, or the solo lane that he was playing before. You don't quite know what Yarkor is going to go for, but that's where a lot of teams come in and we talk to say, okay, how do you fight a team like this? How do you fight a team that is doing all this wacky stuff? And it's always like a team like the Camelot Kings who always say, we're just going to play our style. We're just going to do what we want to do, what we know best, and see if that can win out. Do you think for the Camelot Kings, that's probably the same call they need to make against the Scarabs?
Yeah, no, I mean, with the Scarabs, I'm not really sure what their identity is yet. I mean, we know the Kings. Like, you see a draft, you can almost pin it to the Kings if you know them like we do. So, honestly, I think the Scarabs still have to kind of come up with an identity. I think a big part of that is Jarkor. We've seen him playing the Baron lately, which I think is pretty unique. I like to see that kind of stuff because it kind of cements that they have their own style of thinking. It cements that they've got their own way that they want to try to win the game, and I think that's really what they're going to need when they're playing against, a veteran, winning team like the Kings.
Yeah, and for Kings, a lot of the drafts and theory crafting spearheaded by Genetics, the support for this team, whether he gets his opportunity to play the Khepri or the Emoja, which are two of the most winning gods for the player and the team as a combination. It's going to come down to a lot of the drafting phase, I think, with this, because with Genetics at the mine, with Variety sometimes as stubborn as a player as his team, and he has joked about before as well. You never really know what's kind of cooking up in the kitchen for this team, and I think that talking about Genetics specifically, especially going against a brand new support, might be one of the hardest matchups really for Yarkor to go against.
Yeah, Jark, he's an experienced frontliner ultimately, right? He's one of the best solo laners we've seen in recent years. And this is also a frontline role, so I think he's comfortable in this frontline role. He's obviously going to have a little bit less farm. He's going to have to play some of these different characters, like you mentioned, the Khepri and the Emoja, that you typically don't get to see in the solo lane. So I'm, looking forward to see his progression on some of these other characters that he wasn't able to play in the solo lane. I'm hoping, Jarkor can come up with a Khepri or Emoja that makes the other team want to ban it. Hopefully we'll get there. I'm not sure he's there yet. I've seen him play his own style, but I do want him to play these meta characters too, but we'll see how he does today.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like you mentioned, we have seen a little bit of the Baron coming from Yarkor so far in that support role, and kind of trying to build that synergy over with Stewart, who's had to go through so many changeups just for directly affecting his lane between now going from a new support, having a jungler that was able to give him some assistance previously on, having to swap their solo laners from last year into this year. There's been a lot of changeups on this Solar Scarabs, and we always throw our sentiments over towards Slaney just because of how much he's had to go through as a coach for the amount of roster swaps that he's had, for the amount of changeups and style placements that he's had to have there. But Yarkor, as you mentioned, a tenured player in multiple roles now, and kind of talk to me about that mental kind of dynamic shift up when you go from a different role, because you were before playing mid at the professional level, swapped over to solo support role there. How does that kind of change up like your mental dynamic going from an entire new role?
Well, support is an interesting role because you're laning with someone else. It's the only role in Smite where you're consistently standing in a lane for the first 5 or so levels. So you really have to build up that synergy. Like you mentioned, like Stewart, he's had to deal with a couple different supports this year, and obviously Jarkor is the most recent addition. Dealing with a partner in lane is something that's very unique in Smite because you really have to be on point with your synergy. You really have to be on point with your combos. So, I mean, especially with the Scepter being in the game, dual pressure mattering a little bit more, you really have to be on point when those two are playing together. I think, honestly, with what we've seen so far, Stewart and Jarkor actually look like a pretty good combo. They look to have, like, pretty good control of the lane when, they're working together and pick characters that they're comfortable on. So, hopefully that continues today. I'd love to see some duo control from this Bugs team if they're capable of doing so.
And one little trend that we have noticed, at least with one god specifically, one that Yarkor is very tenured on, is that RDO that was mostly been played in the solo lane for the majority of kind of her lifetime. We saw a little bit of support early on when RDO was first coming out. But now that this duo pressure is kind of a big thing, do you think that RDO could maybe come up to at least the forefront of conversation for Yarkor? I mean, he's played it a lot over in solo lane. Well, now you're just throwing it with an extra person over in that lane.
Yeah, no, I mean, jokes aside about RDO being an easy character, Jarkor is obviously one of the best RDOs in the game, and I mean, it's all but convenient that it's a character that is potentially meta and support now. So I think if the game calls for it, if he's into a Terra or a game where the cripple seems particularly efficient, then I would like to see him pick it up because I do, once again, think it will help with that dual lane pressure issue that I was talking about, and it will help with that dual lane synergy between him and Stewart. So.
We'll have to see what Yarkor decides to cook up for himself and over into the duo lane. Stewart himself has also been on the rise as of the last couple of years, or at least as of the last year that he's been on this team. But no more speculations, at least for now. We'll jump into the picks and bans for game number 1 between the Camelot Kings and the Solar Scarabs to see what picks decide to pop out between these two teams. It will be the Kings taking that first pick slot. Most likely for them, going to keep some of the more quintessential picks that they would like out there, the Emojis, the Kepris open, and kind of force the Solar Scarabs to make those decisions. We're already out the gate. Dodgy and Umoja will be banned away by the two teams respectively. And that's kind of to be expected. I mean, Dodgy has been running rampant in the jungle for like the last 5 to 6 weeks of competitive play, even despite having the big gap in the middle. Umoja still a top support in her role as well.
Yeah, I think whenever you see a Dodgy ban, especially from first pick, you can expect that they're looking for characters like Umoja, characters like Kepri, characters like Eset that don't have CC immunity to deal with the pull-in from the Dodgy ultimate. And that makes sense because the Kings really do prioritize those top picks, so it makes sense that they ban it. The Solar Scarabs do ban away the Umoja, and they do ban away the Cabrakan, which do make sense as they're all top picks. The Vulcan is an interesting ban. I didn't expect that. I didn't know people considered Vulcan that good. I guess Big Man has been looking pretty good on it despite their loss last week, so interested to see what they're going to first pick in this case.
Yeah, it seems with the small buffs that we have been getting to Vulcan, he's kind of risen up in popularity a little bit. We saw him quite a bit in week number 1 of competitive play between the SPL. We even saw a little bit in the SCC where he was thrown out there. And I think the Atlas ban is also an interesting one because at the start of the year, Atlas was getting sporadic play by a couple of different supports here and there, and then slowly started to make his way through. And now with the rise of the Manticore Spikes meta, it really seems that Atlas has been put kind of to the front of that conversation. But it'll be a Ymir pick first for the Camelot Kings. That leaves the Kepri open over to the Solar Scarabs. Do you feel that that's a worthwhile trade for the Kings to give up both Hades and Kepri?
I actually think the Scarabs are getting the better end of the deal here. I think they called the bluff. I think they know that the Kings maybe don't have a Hades player. I'm not sure, I personally anticipated the Ymir over the Kepri in this particular scenario, but I guess they value the duo pressure, especially after they felt like they lost to pressure last week. So it makes sense that they would adjust to prioritizing a character like Ymir over Kepri in this case. But I do think, like I said, the Bugs got the better end of the deal so far.
We'll see if the Scarabs can keep that trend up. Naja previously kind of only talking about his potential over in the jungle. Did see it from Benny Q in the mid lane last game, but the Valkyries are a little bit weird with their stuff. You never know what Benny Q is going to throw out in the mid lane. Most likely will be for Captain Twig in the jungle, and then a Cupid picked up as well for Netroid, one of the picks he's been going to. Alongside things like the Chiron, we've also seen Neath round out at the draft, at least over for the Camelot Kings. So now that we do have kind of a look at the top three, is there anything so far missing from the Camelot Kings you'd like to see maybe short up in those last couple of picks?
Yeah, so with the Vulcan band, I don't actually know what Big Man is going to be looking for in these last couple slots. I don't actually know what his mid-god pool is looking like outside of Vulcan. Maybe he'll default to a more standard mage like a Merlin. Maybe a Yu Huang has become sort of that quintessential standard mage lately. So I would be curious to see if the Solar Scarabs ban some mages. Turns out they're not going to, so I guess they're not worried about the characters he's going to be looking for.
Will be a Pele pick for the Solar Scarabs to round out their top three. Cerberus, the first ban by the Scarabs, so focusing a little bit on that solo pressure. Recent buffs to Cerb, helping him with a little bit of that extra anti-heal department. Up against gods like Hades and Pele, he'd be able to get a pretty decent amount of healing. But for the team that doesn't have their mid laner, at least to our knowledge, doesn't have their mid laner locked in, it's the Camelot Kings who are continuing to ban more mids out. Kukulkan taken away, something that Big Man and Baronic are both prevalent on. We've seen performances out of both of those two players there. So I then wonder where the mid lane selection will go for. Do we maybe see the Neath mid come back out for the Camelot Kings as a possibility?
Yeah, I think it's always, in the bag for Big Man. I am a little curious about the Kukulkan ban. Maybe they know something I don't know. I personally don't. I don't think that ban makes a lot of sense to me personally, but maybe they're worried about some type of objective secure or objective gameplay that the Scarabs might be looking to pull out. So I'm just going to assume they know more than me. I'm curious to see what their next ban will be, though.
Yeah, will be a Poseidon, something else that Big Man Tings was playing a lot, especially back whenever he had to play from home for a couple of weeks. He was playing a lot of Poseidon and a lot of Neath, gods that have some pretty easy skill shots to hit. Can't really miss too much on those ones, and he played them pretty well, despite the fact that, again, he was playing on ping all the way back from EU. And then one more ban for the Camelot Kings. Will they go for another mid? Will they maybe go for a Hunter ban in any regard? The Cupid locked in kind of already spells to me that this one's going to Netroid, so maybe try and take away some of the counter pick potential. Maybe Artemis could be something they would ban if they're really scared of that one, but we haven't really seen too much Artemis outside of the Jade Dragons, really.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an ADC ban. It could be an ESET ban. I know people haven't been playing it particularly much, but it looks like it could be a good ESET game for Baronic on the other side. I think they have a lot of options here. I didn't really understand the Kukulkan ban in the first place, so maybe they don't feel like there's a bunch of obvious bans. It will end up being the ESET ban, so I'm glad I don't look that dumb, and I've at least gotten one prediction correct today. I do think it would have been pretty annoying to deal with that Kepri on the other side, so I think that was a good call.
Yeah, I mean, between a revive, a circle of protection, another giant circle from Hades, so much AoE that could at least be there for the Solar Scarabs. It will be a Merlin pick. So now we have to go a little bit further for Big Man Tings. If I look back on a lot of the last games that he had played, 3 games of Vulcan, a game of Amuse and Cobb, that one's already banned away. Merlin, that one's now picked out. The only one that's still left standing there is Chiron, so maybe a potential for the Horseman to make his way in towards mid. Always Neath is something that Big Man Tings has kept in his back pocket as well if he needs to bring it out. But along with that, solo lane still hasn't been talked on. You're going up against the Hades. I mean, what kind of options do you really look towards for solo in that case?
I mean, we saw Aqua in the last set go towards the Mulan into the Hades, and that looked pretty good to me. So that would probably be my preference. I don't think that Variety plays Mulan. I'd guess he might play something like a Tyr, or maybe one of the other warriors that he's more comfortable on. They did ban away his Guardian of Choice in the Cerberus, so I suppose that was a good ban by the Scarabs. Now, if I'm the Kings
Arise,
here,
my child!
Tiamat. Now, that's interesting. I was going to guess Yu Huang. I haven't seen Tiamat in a while. I've seen a lot of people saying this character is pretty weak right now. I suppose Big Man's out to prove all those people wrong. And it will be the tier as well for the solo lane, which makes sense. It's up Variety's alley. And I do think it is pretty good in this game into, I would honestly say, the 4 characters that the Scarabs have picked so far. So it makes sense to me.
So 2 good calls from you there, an ESET ban and a tier pickup for Variety. Tiamat, maybe not the immediate call. And maybe kind of, with that Yuong, we've been seeing it in the SCC at least a little bit. That one's getting some ban priority that way. So interesting to see that it's not trickling its way maybe upward toward the SPL. But for the Solar Scarabs, one final pick. They need their Hunter for Neath, or not for Neath, for Stuart to go up against a Cupid. Probably not the best idea to go into something like Shibalanke. Like I said, Artemis we don't see too much of. Maybe Heimdall still available. That's something that we can go towards. Chernobog. A couple of options for Stuart. Any preference for him to maybe try and fight up against this comp?
Yeah, I'm thinking he's really got to worry about the Ymir walls. He's got to worry about the Cupid ult. So it's got to be something that deals with both of those things pretty well. I'm not really sure what really comes to mind first here. I mean, those are top picks for a reason. They kind of really squeeze the God pool in what you can pick because a lot of stuff just does not look good into the Cupid ult. It does not look good into the Ymir wall. He's going to pick the Artemis. He is the slow immunity and slow cleanse to get out of the Cupid ult, so that makes sense. That's a pretty typical favorable matchup for the Artemis. So I believe that makes sense. You know, he's vulnerable to getting walled by the Ymir, but I suppose he's going to take his chances.
So now kind of looking at these two compositions here, Solar Scarabs, they've got at least some decent objective push whenever it comes to the Artemis. Going to be able to get some decent damage, some decent shred from the Merlin as well. So we kind of know how fights, or at least dealing with this objective style play, will go for the Solar Scarabs. When it comes down to the team fight, I mean, how does the Camelot Kings look in? Because to me, it looks like they've got a much more pick-oriented style of composition between the tier, the Naja kind of throwing out there, grab one person and isolate them. Is that kind of maybe the play style the Kings are going for against this comp?
Yeah, honestly, I think that's what the Kings are good at as well. So it makes sense to me that they prioritize characters like this. It makes sense to me that, you know, that might be their game plan, like you said, in this particular game. I think they're going to be kind of running around the map, not necessarily as a group, but kind of taking their small advantages, you know, their 3v2s, their 2v3s, their 4v3s, etc., as they move around the map. And they're just going to fish for favorable fights. They're not going to take even team fights. And I think that's what they're good at. And I honestly think that's a pretty good game plan going up against a team comp like the one the Scarabs have.
And then for the Solar Scarabs there, they got to go against a team that has been said in apologies, jokingly, at least by Captain Twig, yeah, we don't really like to fight the first 15 or 20 minutes or so. We do kind of like to play that more farm-oriented style of game. So for the Solar Scarabs, if this game does push to 20, 25 minutes before we really start seeing that action, do they scale a little bit better than the Camelot Kings when it comes to some of these late-game fights?
I think that if the Scarabs get a foothold in this game and they're the ones calling the shots, they're the one forcing the objective groupings, I do think they have an advantage in the teamfight scenarios. They have a lot of really good teamfight ultimates. Their characters pair really well together when they're all grouped and on time to the same objective. It just depends on if they're going to be the ones doing that, or if it's going to be the ones, or they're going to be the ones on the back foot. I think from the back foot, their team comp's going to feel a lot worse. So hopefully they can be on the front foot if they're looking to succeed. But I suppose we'll have to see as the set gets going.
Yeah, for this one, it will be the Solar Scarabs and the Camelot Kings. Remember, the Kings dropped to the Dragons last week. The Scarabs able to take a game off of the Olympus Bolts in their set, but weren't able to close that one out there, but still at least making some strides. New team member coming over to the Solar Scarabs right before the phase had turned. It was a new jungler going through. Now with Yarkor over there, we'll see how the Solar Scarabs can look up against another top team. It's the Camelot Kings, Solar Scarabs, game number 1. We're going to throw it over to Goran Trelli.
Thanks so much, J-Mac and Hurry on the desk. That's right, it's me and Trelli hanging around for this one. I'm excited to watch how this goes. It's actually interesting to me. I feel like we don't get this sort of candid nature from players sometimes, with like asking Genetics about last week, and when he said that it was frankly kind of embarrassing that they lost to a role swap in game. That to me, I think illustrated the fact that they were not happy. Like one of those like we're not happy without saying we're not happy kind of deal. And I expect that they are going to come back with maybe a teensy bit of a vengeance. I wouldn't be excited to be the Scarabs going into this one.
Yeah, I would assume they've got that fire lit under them, as you said, and it looks like Genetics and Yark both watching out to make sure their buffs are not invaded. This is something that we've seen time and time again from like the SCC, for example. If you lose that original purple buff, you can really be put behind. So now Nextroid is going to have to solo the purple buff in that case, but still, as long as Genetics is able to watch that one out, you know, you're not going to be getting extra behind in lane in a situation where you're both on these hyper carries and the Cupid and the Artemis. Neither one of these ADCs want to come out to, you know, have their buff stolen away and then you don't hit level 2 for a bit, and it really starts to add up in the farm-wise, and your whole duo lane can be lost from a play like that.
And then, yeah, because then you start talking Interceptor, then you start talking pressure just in general, and definitely going to be troublesome for them. I think troublesome as well, and a pick that normally we're talking about, and in my mind I'm talking about with the Kings being problematic, but Harkor over here is going to be on the Capri, having that res. You know, Hurry had said if they're playing from behind, it's definitely not going to be very comfortable for their roster, but like that's something in team fights that you have to imagine this Capri is going to at least be able to alleviate some of that pressure.
Yeah, I think it's just in the composition itself, right? Like there's a ton of single target damage on the side of the Camelot Kings, but also I think they've spread out their team fight presence well enough in the sense of They've got Fields of Love from Netroid, which is going to be a big AoE team fight skill. You know, Windfire Wheels is going to go up. I don't think there's too much burst that's going to be sitting on the back foot of that, but as long as Genetics is there and can sort of split up that team fight with the wall, for example, I don't think that Captain Twig's going to be landing in like this big burst of damage. Because you're up against, you know, a Merlin in this case, a Pele's going to have a fair bit, but actually getting aggressive here onto Veronic early on.
Immediately they have the damage knocked up is there, but not quite enough. Twig under the tower, they turn it
What a
around.
pull.
They go for Veronic, but Twig loses his life. Well played by the Scarabs, and first blood for Sam.
Wow, I mean, that's one of those cases where Veronic just goes for the pole, pulls him underneath the tower, and now VMT going to take a little bit of poke in the meantime, but Captain Twig falls down for first blood, and it goes over to Sam for Soccer on the Pele. One of these characters that, with a small lead, Pele from the jungle, you get some early aggression, you finish that first item before the opposition, and then your ganks are lethal, especially over in the duo lane, for example, where it looks like the Scarabs could use some of that pressure, right? They're underneath the tower line, Netroid's just sitting there confidently. It's not going to be good once the Pele shows up and Sam for Soccer can come alleviate some of that pressure.
Yeah, that's going to be problematic for the Kings, to say the least. And we've seen what a Pele can do, right? Lasbra, I think, is a good example. Maybe not this last set, but last week, given the right circumstances, even when your team's getting deicide, coming out and just picking up a triple kill for the hell of it. Sam, definitely that level of player. We'll see whether or not that Pele can do something similar. I mean, that already is an impressive turnaround. Small lead in the jungle for Sam, 4-3 for Twig. Admittedly only matters here when they start talking about level 5 and specifically getting that ult first. And you know, Pele, I was going to say Blink Pele ult, but there's no Blink online just yet. So a closed gap, but also decent damage. But without that Blink online, having to go bead super early to deal with some of the CC, you know, like you said, the Fearless, you've got the Sash, you've got the Ymir Freeze, plus Tiamat, a lot to deal with on the Kings. It feels like that does slow down some of the gank potential a little bit.
Yeah, I would say so. Closing gap with your ultimate is not going to be the call more often than not. It's pretty easy to juke. It's pretty easy to predict in that sense. You want to make sure that you've got the knock-up to line it up, or the blink into the knock-up and then ult the chase down after the fact. Like if you're just ulting in, Volcanic Lightning, and then you look around and you're like, wait, you guys still have dash? It's not the best option. So Sam for Soccer getting off to that early lead gives some more damage, and Netroid ticks over to level 5, but not enough to land that kill.
A little bit of damage out there. Hardcore has to fall back under the tower. Like you said, not enough to get a kill for the Kings. It's such a weird thing, though, especially because you have to factor in a lot of stuff when you're playing up against the Kings. They farm incredibly well. That's one of the conversations we almost always have to have about them. Maybe we'll hold that thought for a moment. Scary D, Sam collapsing in on Variety, and Twig. Variety gets a nice two-man Fearless, even if it's just to separate them from Twig. Need some healing here soon. Keep what's going their way. There's going to be the Pillar of Agony. Twig uses his ult just to get out of it. That's going to be a one-for-one trade. Ult-wise, Variety has to use this carefully. A little bit of healing, a little bit of clear, and a lot of safety to make sure that he stays alive in this lane. Keeps him going for it. But the thing I was going to say is, you see this farm, and you see this first blood. That gives a little bit. Variety's looking for the blood still.
He wants the kill,
I'm surprised he's trying to get this fight going. But it's still the Kings' game right now. They have 200 gold, not that much, but there's supposed to be 600 in the pocket of Sam that was supposed to offset that. And maybe it's going to get a little bit worse. Not able to find the steal onto the purple buff. Not quite able to lock down Hardcore long enough to get the kill there. So far, it has not been comfortable being a Scarab support this game. It has just been bullying on bullying.
Yeah, I mean, Yark there held the hog perfectly, but was getting so low. It was one of those situations where it's like, please DPS it, please DPS it. Like, I have hog, I want to confirm this buff for you and leave. And so at that point, Stewart had to go into the Caledonian board, drop Tusky down just to make sure that Yark didn't get caught out at that point and use the Scarab's Blessing just to confirm the purple buff. So I think a great call. Make sure you get the extra farm. But as you said, I mean, the gold lead still in favor of the Camelot Kings despite falling for that first blood. And now Scary D is going to have no mana, but it looks like Sam for Soccer has the wraparound here. Variety barely misses that pull underneath the tower. That could have been deadly for Sam for Soccer because there is actually at the end the beat, so he would have been fine.
I mean, look, he's vibing, right? I mean, Variety, like, it's so interesting watching Variety on this thing. And Tier in general is just fun to watch for me because, especially like early on right now, he's still in that position where that heal, actually he's leveled it up enough that he's finally getting the chunk that you would expect. But early on, you like go into it with that mentality of like, don't worry, I'll heal myself. And then like you hit it when it's level 1 and you're like, I got nothing for that. It's always interesting to see how that dynamic changes. Variety's just been playing aggressive anyway. Has the blink, has the Lawbringer. I'll keep my eyes on where he may or may not be engaging throughout this game. I'm surprised to see Genetics playing as far up as he is right now. Sam's in the neighborhood. Yeah, just completely ignoring it. Twig zoning out Stewart, going for the kill, and is going to find it just like that. They might lose Genetics, but that's going to be fine. But no, it's a great wall from Genetics. Walls off Sam, walls off Yark, and keeps him going forward. Now with King's backup, the Scarabs do not feel confident trying to take this fight.
Yeah, I really thought Sam was about to try and ult in at that point. Captain Twig, I mean, good beads by Stewart, but just not enough. The damage coming from this Naja was enough to confirm that kill onto the ADC of the Solar Scarabs, and just great sense of mind. I mean, without beads, that's a scary gang to go up for, but as long as you have wind-fired wheels, as long as you have that CC immunity, you don't care too much about Tusky. So great kill, and stealing the purple buff is going to put Netroid 2 levels up over Stewart in this lane, and that's just the start, right? Once an ADC gets ahead like that, I expect to see Netroid like just hiding in the purple buff, waiting to see if Stewart steps up too far, look for some more aggression whenever possible. You know the beats are down for 2 minutes, and Stewart still does not have the board, so anytime that Fields of Love connects like halfway, just right in the middle, Stewart's probably dying at that point.
Yeah, no beads, no boar. It's a good time for Netroid. If you
no
can
beads,
just
no boar, there is a problem.
There you go.
That's the sign.
It's one of the lesser known songs actually that comes through, or signs that come through. I don't know why my brain keeps expecting something crazy to happen in solo lane, but it's solo lane. We've been trained for years about how nothing crazy happens over here.
See that heal?
You've got 2 gods that heal. Yeah,
wait,
that's the craziest
you see
thing.
that heal?
That's so wild.
But then, that was something
Pillar
crazy.
of Agony. Sam's over here. Not going to find the connect on the damage. Knockup's good, but it doesn't matter. Variety ults over the wall. Looks for the disengage. And then what a great sash from Twig. The blink as well. Gets Variety out of there. And Sam is the one who has to turn tail and run. Twig slow. Has to play this carefully. Ult gets him in a good disengage. Sam goes down to Tings. And that's the Kings out of there.
I mean, Variety held the ult, just perfect timing there. Sits in the ult for bits, like, okay, should I go to my tower? No, my team's over here, I'm gonna go to the team. Goes over the wall, Captain Twig comes in, gets the beads down for Sam for Soccer. I thought for a second was gonna try and take him up with the ult, but then held on to it for good reason, because Barana comes over, switches into fire stance, and almost burns down Twig, but with the disengage there from the Windfire Wheels, that's gonna be a pick for free, and then be able to get out there. So props to the Kings once again, but the aggression does not stop there. A quick little Shards of Ice is gonna confirm that purple buff, and make sure that Genetics gets out just fine.
Yeah, you had mentioned it earlier. You've got Fields of Love, you've got Shards of Ice, and you've got a 2-level lead. Well, let's call it 1.5 right now. Netroid 9-8 for Stewart. But a level lead nonetheless. You're going to invade on that purple buff. 2,800 experience. A lot more impactful than the 1,100 gold at this point. Might end up swinging a little bit in the other favor, though. Twig caught out in the jungle, burned down by Baronic, and secured by Sam. A clean pickup for the Scarabs.
Yeah, just caught Twig lacking at the oracles there. It was just a little bit too long, unfortunately. And there's not too much disengage, I feel, that the Naja has at this point in the game. Sure, you get some movement speed and the ring bounce is nice, but if your ultimate's down and you're in there, you're probably not getting out of there. You know, it's one of those situations where you just need to have your team with you constantly. So Twig caught out twice at this point, 1 and 2 on the Naja. Definitely still impactful, but he's going to be falling a bit behind Sam for a bit just because of how quickly Pele can farm the map and the, just mirrored stat lines for both of them. But this is interesting. I expected the Wing Blade. Captain Twig going for the Relic Dagger, so actually probably trying to use these blink ults more effectively, just trying to get them off. The Relic Dagger did get a buff a bit ago. We haven't seen it too much, except for on supports every once in a while, but I'm interested to see how aggressive Captain Twig decides to get, since his blink will be on such a short cooldown.
Well, so far, I'm trying to think of more aggressive. He's been involved in a lot of fights
I want to
already.
see even more
I guess,
fights.
and it's something that can only work out, and this is really fun to think about because, Relic Dagger, one of the biggest problems with it in terms of, like, tankiness or a build like this is usually the fact that it's a lot of health, but not a lot of anything else other than the cooldown that you're getting on your Relic.
Right.
But the Naja prots being there whether or not you connect on your ult, with that amount of health, like, that Twig's just going to be survivable now.
that is the case, and Baronic just used the flicker. I was going to say Captain Twig tried to get aggressive onto Baronic, that wasn't able to close gap, and once again, Stewart finds a purple buff, and here are the Kings. The ring bounce, though, does get backed off, so it's not going to confirm the buff, but now the Netroid is here, just out of reach of that space, and now it looks like just the chase down. The Solar Scarabs want to try and fight here, but I imagine the Kings got what they want. They want the farm, and they want to get out.
Yeah, come over, secure a buff, go back over to mid camp, guess what? Secure the camps, get the experience. It's one of those things that when we look at this squad, that's what they do. I mean, there's no other way to really word it. Like, they are not coming in looking for insane early game team fights where things are absolutely wild. Maybe a little bit now that the Twig has the Relic Dagger. But they want to farm, and they will out-farm you every step of the way. It's 1,000 gold, give or take, based on the waves. But a lot of that is going to be, despite losing first blood, despite the kills being even, right? They're still slowly amassing some of that gold. And that's typically like how that back-breaking moment for Kings games comes through. It's just you go into a fight at one point and you think it's relatively even because nothing crazy's happened, and then you find out, oh wait, we're 3,000 gold down. How did that happen? And it's because of moments like this. No Scarab to be seen in the right side jungle. Pyromancer started up by the Kings and secured with ease. Not a soul to be seen from the other side. And that's going to extend that gold lead just a little further in their direction.
And it seems like the Solar Scarabs are grouped around this Gold Fury as if trying to get some sort of return, but just going to be the Oracles. I don't imagine any pull comes through here because there's not any overwhelming amount of burst, but finally, they are going to make the pull. The Kings are very onto this, though. Genetics already going to be here. Shards of Ice not available for the steal. They're just going to 50-50.
Merlin burn is always nice. Wall goes up. Scarabs secure the Gold Fury and immediately scatter to the wind. A great call from them just to make sure, like you said, things stay evened out. And the gold lead isn't that massive for the Kings. Genetics tries, though, and at least keeps it awkward. That's the good thing about Merlin and the bad thing about Merlin, all in one little team fight where you get to see the burn and the lack of secure that makes it a little more cautious and, well, frightening, I think, to watch. Variety's getting aggressive on Security. Guess what? This purple buff belongs to the Kings. Frozen is Sam for Soccer now aggressive into the fight, trying to find their way onto the Kings, but instead it's going to be Netroid. Fields of Love peels for him, almost for Genetics. He's just trying to stay alive at this point. Wall goes up and blocks off a little bit, but you're going to lose somebody for that amount of aggression. Genetics goes down.
Yeah, Genetics goes down, but take a look at mid lane. Big Man Tings is going to drop the Lizards and say, I got no problem with that. Sure, we lost our support, but tier 1 goes down. Some more aggression on the right side of the map as we saw Variety was trying to go for a solo kill, but to me, it more so looked like I'm really bored and I just want to ult you, and I know that there's no gank coming over. Good plays throughout. I didn't even get to break down. I love the mental gymnastics that Genetics just had going up to that gold fury, right? Because, okay, he's like, Yarkor is going to grab me and abduct me, which means I can't steal this. So I'm going to wall him off, but then I still have to go for my carpet. Unfortunately, there was no way to try and steal anyway, so the Scarabs grab that. They get the kill after the fact, and the Camelot Kings retaliate with that mid tower, which still means the gold lead's going to be in their favor for the time being, but Captain Twig blinks in.
Yeah, he wants to fight, wants to find something, has the ult available. A good pull from Baronic keeps him away. Baronic has no mana to work with. Beads were up for Baronic there, but Hardcore or Sam would have been great targets. Unable to find either of those with the ult, and there's where that Relic Dagger can come in, right? Because now you just used a blink, didn't really get a lot out of it, but at least it's going to be back sooner rather than later.
Yep, and now you get to retreat at that point, and Captain Twig can look, and in 70 seconds or so, try and find some more aggression off that point, right? You got the cooldowns for a reason. You should be using them. Take a look at Sam for Soccer speeds, though. 70 seconds down, lining up decently well with the blink cooldown. So this is the Camelot Kings here. I assume most of the SPL teams are going to be keeping track of those bead timers anyways, but the Camelot Kings especially, there's no way that they don't know that Sam's beads are coming up like within seconds of Captain Twig's blink. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're close by if he goes for a play just to see if the Windfire wheels could take off. But 40 seconds, there's no real objective up at the moment. I don't imagine Sam's even going to put himself in the position to be taken up by a Windfire wheels anytime soon.
And unfortunately for Twig, he's got, what, 7 seconds, I think, separating him and Sam's beads. So, like, it's a very, 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 very ludicrously small window to try and find an ult where he doesn't have those beads available, and you have blink if you're Twig. Meanwhile, it's a lot of pings. Look, aggression. The purple buff's not even up. They're going for obelisk steals right now. trying to take anything from the
Genetics
shrine.
wants it.
More than anything. And they're going to get aggressive. There's a trap on the ground. Stewart walled off and slowed around. Not much you can do with that. Scarabs blessing over the wall is going to make sure that Stewart stays safe. That's going to keep the Scarabs alive and well in this fight. Kings going for a little bit of his own. Genetics getting exactly what he wanted out of this. He is going to charge up their obelisk, get themselves a trebuchet. Maybe even start something more. Variety with a nice rotation over. Is in a position to keep the fight going if they so please. But they don't so please, so they're going to back off. They got what they wanted, Trelly, and they're going to leave it as is.
Yeah, Genetics said, we are getting that trebuchet or dying for it. And in this case, they didn't have to die, so the treb gets sent down right. But perfect timing to send it down. It takes a while, right? I mean, the Primal Fury's not quite up. But by the time it makes its way to about mid-map, that Primal Fury will be just about to spawn in, as well as that Pyromancer. So I would not be surprised if the Camelot Kings plan their attack accordingly. They wait for someone to come over here to try and defend, and then look at one of these objectives when you have plenty of time to do so. Pretty much all relics are available except for Stewart, who just had to use that Aegis because of the aggression from Genetics on the left side of the map. So this could be a true 5v5, assuming that there's more aggression towards this Pyromancer as it spawns in. Since Netroid's on this side of the map, yeah, I'm going to assume that objective is on the mind of the Camelot Kings.
You have to think. Split pushing, things like that. Pressure right now, massive for the Kings. See, as you mentioned, the trebuchet right on time. As the Pyromancer comes up. Pings, really big. Pings, not tings. Very large.
Tings is also big, man.
Scarab. Yeah, he's pretty big right now. Level up on Baronic. A lot of ward coverage. Pyromancer's low. Scarabs come in. Scary D takes it right out from under the noses of the Kings. And a big Pillar of Agony pulls in 3. Trying to find the follow-up, and they get rid of Netroid. And the chase is on. Scary D's out of there, but Sam, Baronic, they're trying to lead the way forward. Not quite able to find that last tick of health to get rid of Genetics. And instead, it's Baronic pulled back in, sashed out, and chased down. Up into the sky he goes, and down to the ground. No, the Scarab's blessing so well timed, and manages to save them through. The Kings try as they might, get nothing from that fight.
I mean, that was just, Scary D blinks in, goes for the steal, gets it, which was already a great play, but the Pillar of Agony after the fact got Netroid so turned around that instead of just dashing out of the ult, actually dashed into the rock and just went back into the Pillar of Agony and ends up dying there. I thought then Yark was going to send the ult out and just use it just to make sure the rest of the team got out, but didn't have to, was able to save it for Baronic going up into the Windfire Wheels, and that's going to be a massive trade for the Scarabs. Unfortunately for the Scarabs, take a look at the gold. Still vastly in favor of the Camelot Kings up until this Gold Fury, of course, where they're pulling it now. Variety, the only one here now to try and go for a steal. This is a risky call.
Stepping forward, zones out Scary D, not even able to try for the Fury. Primal goes the way of the Scarabs this time around. What was a nice little cushy lead for the Kings, kind of around that 2K mark, is now under 1,000 as the Scarabs fight their way back into it. Primal Fury right before a Fire Giant. No, they back away. Scary D's going to spot this one, though. Fire Giant started up by the Kings. Burn is going to be there. Scary sees it, drops a ward. Whether or not they commit to this is the question for the Kings. They're holding on to it, and they're going pretty deep for this one. Hardcore makes his way in. Baronic's here. They're throwing the damage out there. Kings able to secure that one. Pillar of Agony thrown up by Scary D, but he's taking so much damage from Netroid. Dash disengages the Kings. Knock up from Tings. Makes sure they stay alive, and it's a free FG for the Order team.
I mean, that was a get in and get out situation. The Camelot Kings realized, hey, it's going to take you guys a bit to get over here, but in true sense of the word, that was definitely a 50-50. Shards of Ice isn't the greatest confirm. Fields of Love wasn't the greatest confirm. It was just, hey, we have enough DPS to go for this weighted coin toss, and that was the play. So now the Camelot Kings have Fire Giant on 5, have that cushy 2-3K gold lead in pocket, and they get to start to systematically pick apart this map. Notably, no one's level 20 yet. I mean, that was a very good Fire Giant call, but also extremely early. The burn down was especially slow at this point. So now we're going to see a lot of itemization helping out the Camelot Kings as this game goes on. Sanford Soccer and Stewart still over and left, but BMT has already started sending the Lizards down left side, trying to get that tier 2 tower. And it looks like the call from the Scarabs is going to be, let's just split up, get farm in the meantime. You know, they've got Fire Giant. We don't have to defend these tier 2 towers. We'll defend under our Phoenix. We're not that far behind that it's going to be that bad.
Yeah, Charlie, I'm going to ask you a question I should have asked you about 15 minutes ago, but it's going to come up now because Netroid, absolutely hit like a truck during that fight.
Yeah.
And you know, the chin sizer there makes a little bit of sense, but the dominant start as opposed to the transcendent start, which we might have to hold on to. Veronica is getting chased down right now by Variety, knocked up, just bullied by the solo laner. Twig is going to get credit for that. That tower shot just shy of killing off the jungler for the Kings. With Veronica down, the Kings are going to continue pushing forward. Tings maybe caught out, has to dash away. Great wall by Genetics. And now the Fields of Love, the turnaround. They might still lose Tings, but they're going to find something for it. Scarabs blessing onto Scary D. It procs. Pulled to safety. Stewart's low, sashed off. Not able to get taken up into the sky. No ult available for Twig. The Kings are going to have to back off there. No mid laner for them. So instead, I'll turn back to where a lot of their damage has been coming from. 0-1 and 0 hasn't put a lot of kills up, but it is Netroid chunking the Phoenix. This dominant start, what does it mean to you?
It means that there's going to be a lot of aggression towards this Phoenix's Variety. Getting taken real low, has to law bring her out, but it looks like that's all the aggression. So as we were saying, this dominant start.
So as we were saying.
Yeah, I mean, we knew there was going to be nothing coming from there. It's one of those things that you could always pivot into in my mind. Like, Net could have said, I'm going Transcendence this game. And any little thing could have ticked him off too. I'll just go for the dominance. I've noticed a lot of tanky targets. There's going to be a fair bit of HP on the side of Scary D, whereas whenever you go into that Pillar of Agony, you get a ton of protections and mitigations, that sort of thing. I just want to be shredding through that. I think it's just a pivot that you can make on just about anyone. Sure, Transcendence and ability power is all well and good, but it turns out Cupid just getting extra attack speed in that dash, as well as the Odibo, the Silver Branch, it all starts to synergizes real well when your autos are chunking like that. So I think it's one of those pivots that you can always make, but this time it just works out really well into a tanky composition.
So you know, so I worded that like, what does dominance mean to you? You remember like the poems they used to make you write where you'd like spell out the word with the initial and it'd be like, dominance, D.
Daring.
Daring.
Oh.
Oppressive.
Yeah.
And you just write it out. For some reason, I expected that. So chat, you have your homework now. I want a dominance poem. Turned in by midnight? How does it work?
Have it on Gore's desk by Monday.
Yeah, by Monday.
And if it's by Tuesday, it's tardy and we will not accept it.
No, it loses a letter grade. We're nicer.
You went to one of those nice colleges.
It was if it's like, hey, 11:59 is the due date, and if it's at midnight, sorry, dude.
Yeah.
you fail.
Yeah, that was the case that I got. I was like, hey, my power was out. Too bad. 0. I don't care if you did it. But Fire Giant should be coming off here shortly. 1 second up and it's gone. So now it will be respawning back in about a minute, but that Pyromancer will be a nice little prize. Notably though, that Oni Fury will be spawning here shortly as well, about 15 seconds before that touches down. And I would expect to see the Scarabs want to pull that immediately, unless of course, and take a look at this, with the Pyromancer movements, the Camelot Kings, they say, we know that's the consolation prize you're after, and we are zooming on our way to make sure that does not go down cleanly. We'll see if they have enough time to burn it down before the rest of the Camelot Kings can get there. And they haven't even started DPS, so they should be able to defend this.
Pyromancer working out well to make sure the Kings get in position to defend here. Fury not even started up by the Scarabs. They've got the Oracle Vision, so we'll be able to see if the Kings do anything about it. Fire Giant still about 20 seconds before it's back on the map. It seems like the question for the Kings right now. Do we go for it? Do we not? They're going to start the pull. They've got a little bit of burn. Not a lot of secure on either side. Shards of Ice is available for Genetics if you need half health for the Fury. Scary D, Hardcore, walking forward from the Scarabs. But it has been leashed so far by the Kings, making sure that they don't get too close to losing this objective. Variety rooted out. Has to use the initial Fearless as a disengage. It doesn't seem like the Kings want to bother with a 50-50 over here. They're going to pull back, actually set up for a Fire Giant.
Yeah, I mean, it's flashbacks, right? Scary D blinked in, stole the Pyromancer last time, and won the fight for the team after the fact. So why go for the same sort of play? You've got a Scarab's Blessing, so Scary D can make those plays. He can blink in, drop his ult, and zoom on back to the team whenever his HP drops to 0. It's an easy enough play to make, so I can see why the Camelot Kings, A, don't want to pull it, and B, are looking to fight after the fact. But maybe now, just saying, they can have the Oni Fury if they want. Let's go for the Fire Giant. We're 25 minutes in. We're a solid 5K gold up. And we got plenty of DPS.
That's the second time they've done this, right? They've just walked over to the FG while everybody was still up on the Scarabs and just hoped that they didn't see it in time. Wall from Genetics is going to keep Sam out of there. But Sam gets in, does not steal it away. King secure that one. Sam loses his life, saved by Hardcore, and pulled to the good graces of the rest of the Scarabs. Twig tries to go in. Scary D is pulling people with the Pillar of Agony. doesn't seem like anyone's getting too low. Finally, Tings is able to find a kill, get rid of Scaredy. Variety deep in the back line, finds the autos necessary, gets rid of Sam, and finds 2, is looking for 3. If they can find a kill on to Stuart, Fearless comes out. The follow-up is there. A couple more autos is all it takes, and the carry for the Scarabs goes down. Double kill for Variety with Fire Giant on all 5. Trelly, they're marching through the right side, Phoenix. They're marching into the Titan room. And with one more kill, one more wall, maybe just some well-placed damage, the Kings are gonna win game number 1.
And Variety pulls Veronic out of the well and says, you're not safe there. We're gonna take that one 8-5. Not a high kill game, but definitely clinical. This is the type of gameplay we expect to see from the Camelot Kings, and definitely something that we expected to see after a loss. I mean, you got to talk to Genetics beforehand. They weren't happy about their performance last week, and now they're gonna come out swinging.
And I told you about it. Normally, you walk into the booths for a pregame interview, and sometimes like the team talk dies down, and it just gets to like hang out kind of vibes. I walked to the Kings, did not change at all. Did not care that I was there. They were like, "This is what we're going to be doing. These are this is what our plans are." Things like that. What they're talking about, how they're formulating some of their strategies up against the Scarabs, and they were zoned in right the entire time. I think even when I said to Genetics, "Hey, we're going to do an interview," they only quieted down for the interview, so nothing came through. They were just absolutely honed in. And again, this is a team that when you go back to phase 2, when you look at what this squad has done in the past, it was dominance, right? I mean, they were running the league. They had very few losses, and so seeing them come back to form, at least in game 1 here, feels pretty solid.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, it seemed like they had their game plan, as you said. They were discussing from the start. I'm sure the exact picks and bans, maybe not exactly what they were expecting, but once they got the draft, they executed on it quite well. A couple slip-ups here and there, you know, Captain Twig getting caught out on the Naja early on, but it definitely seemed like they had their end game locked in. The strategy was clear. We're going to bait you over to Oni Fury, go for Fire Giant, and then a little bit of an overcommitment there from the Source Scarabs.
Yeah, just a little bit of an overcommitment, but then keep it close, right? For a lot of that game, a little bit of back and forth, some steals that go their way. Definitely not a walk through the park the way the Kings maybe would have liked. We'll see whether they can close this out 2-0 and kind of resurge their dominance in the regular season, or if the Scarabs have a surprise in store for us like last week, right after this.
Water. Earth. Fire. Momo?
No shortcuts on that long run. All I really want is my share. Get him, I got him, I told him it's nothing. In the discussion, for the feelings, I throw all my pain on percussion. The disgusting. I hear them bragging about that they did, and it do not move me, not in the least. They ain't been dropping no seeds in the soil, but swear that you all my spot at the feast. I've been on go mode, show mode, showboat, rowboat, wave ride. Cool shorty, too naughty, pool party, wet for the face ride. Annie up, penny down, hand me down, thrift store, old drip. New money, too funny, old shorty, talk about old. I'm on a now, can't get a pass now. I'm a cash cow, keeping it brash now. It's trash now, I'm a spaz out. I've been killing my lows and living on highs. You see in the skies the proof. You can just see in my eyes that there is no lies. I cannot disguise the truth. I've been duck dog, getting in my new merch, colored duck sauce on the new couch with my Chucks on. Get the on with that hate. I'm big cool on the small chat, cause I know now that I'm all that. Got a hawk guy on the ball cat, get the out of my face. Talking to my mirror like I love you so much. Curving on my critics like I heard you, so what? You can't kill my confidence, I think I'm the man. Tally all the I ever gave on my head. Lately I've been living like I can't take a loss. They ain't wanna help me, that's what made me a boss. You can't kill my confidence, I think I'm the man. We don't give a that's what they don't understand.
And welcome back to the SMITE Pro League. Game number 1 goes over to the Camelot Kings up against the Solar Scarabs. But before we talk about the game, we want to talk about the new jerseys that you may have been seeing some of these players repping out there. Brought to us by our good friends over at Skulls. If you go to shop.smiteproleague.com, you can pick up some of the new jerseys available to all of our teams out there. You can also go to shop.hi-rezstudios.com/SPL. Both of those links work perfectly fine for you to pick up the new jerseys. They look great. They're pretty nice out there, seeing all the players being able to wear those ones, and you can also look great wearing those. So make sure you pick one of those up while you still got the chance to do so. I'm not sure exactly when these are going away, but hey, if you want one, now's the best time to grab one of those out there. So thank you so much to Skulls for being the merch sponsor of Season 9 of the SMITE Pro League. And 2 of those jerseys that were going head-to-head there, at least the Camelot Kings and the Solar Scarabs, this one comes out to the Camelot Kings. And I think a lot of it, at least it kind of dials back to one of those first fights we saw over in solo lane, tried to get the double gank over onto Variety. He gets out, gets his backup from Captain Twig, and from there you could see the coordinated effort that the Camelot Kings are so accustomed to still, where it still felt a little bit more scattered for the Solar Scarabs.
Yeah, no, I mean, we talked about it a bit before the game started, but the Kings were the ones, pulling the metaphorical trigger on the Fire Giants. Honestly, I think the Scarabs held on pretty well in that game. Ultimately, the Kings were the ones to run over to that Fire Giant and pull it first, and 2 times they had a big enough window to just grab it without any kind of contention. They kind of had one, Sam kind of tried to steal that last one, overextended, died, and the game just kind of ended off of that. But up to that point, I thought the Scarabs looked pretty good. Just a couple of mistakes around objectives, a little late for these objectives, kind of put them on the back foot. The Scarabs, they just had to be a little bit more aware, maybe some high wards, maybe a little bit more priority on the Fire Giant compared to the Gold Fury later in the game. But they were right there. They were close, I'd say, J-Mac.
Yeah, definitely not entirely out of it. Just a couple of small mistakes at the end of the game end up costing the Scarabs out there. The Tiamat that we kind of questioned a little bit from Big Man Tings as to whether how well that would perform. We haven't been seeing Tiamat very much. Seems that it did pretty well. Big Man Tings, one of the few players in the league who will still go back to that one. I think of also players like Paul who still make that pick work. A little bit of a weaker early game, but I mean, once you get to the late game, there aren't too many mages that can just essentially do that levels of damage to you that easily.
Yeah, no, I think you get just about any mage to that later stage in the game, they're gonna be putting crazy damage out like that. The Kings did what the Kings do. They let the other team kind of over-rotate. They stayed pushing their lanes. They took advantage fights when they got them, and outside of that, they kind of let the Solar Scarabs kind of overgroup to defend their buffs, and they managed to keep their lead most of the game through that kind of map play that they're so famous for. So. Typical game plan from the Kings worked well to their draft. Honestly, I thought the Solar Scarabs looked pretty comfortable on all of their picks. Bronic getting caught a couple times, but for the most part, everyone looked pretty solid over there. Some great engages, especially by Scary. He had that one blink in. Pyro Steel got a great start to a fight. We saw Jarkor get some really clutch Khepri ultimates. So overall, I think they look pretty solid. I think their team comp made sense. They just need to be a little bit more on the ball, a little bit faster to those objectives, especially the big ones like Fire Giant. And I think we could see a much closer game 2 here.
Yeah, maybe a little bit more concise in the kinds of calls they want to make. If somebody makes the call, let's go do this now, everybody kind of jump instead of maybe hesitating a little bit out there. But Solar Scarabs is what we talked about with week 1 in the waiting room, a little bit here in week number 2. A team that when you make some kind of changes up there, especially when you take away a big shot caller like inbound from the support role, throw Jarkor over here, you kind of have to wonder, what kind of time it's going to take before these teams make these adjustments. Seems they're doing well so far. It's just unfortunate they are going up against some of the top teams in the league just to start things out. But picks and bans for game number 2 now, ready to go for the Camelot Kings and the Solar Scarabs. But let's see what change-ups the Scarabs make, because I think as far as the drafting was concerned for both the teams, it felt like the Solar Scarabs got a really solid top 2 immediately out. I mean, Hades and Khepri, pretty hard to argue against. It felt like the Scarabs draft was pretty solid in game number 1.
Yeah, I thought their draft was good, but I also think the Kings got what they wanted. They don't necessarily value the same things, but they did get a lot of picks that they value really highly. They got the Naja, they got the Ymir. They're picks that some people contest, not everyone, but the Kings certainly are happy to have those. So I'd say both ways the draft went pretty well in terms of what the teams are looking for. The Kings just happen to be the ones who came out on top. Adjustments for this draft, J-Mac, what are you seeing so far?
So far, nothing new that I can tell. The only one different now is that Ymir, that gets banned by the Solar Scarabs in their 3rd slot. So Daji, Amuzing Cobb, and Atlas banned away by the Camelot Kings. Solar Scarabs, Umoja, Cabrakan, and Ymir will not make their way through. So 3 supports banned away by the Scarabs, putting a lot of focus on genetics. And you can kind of see the motion he's making, like, guys, are you serious? Why is everybody targeting me with all these bans? And I still vividly remember, and I love referencing back to an old interview I had with Genetics back in Season 8, where he had 6 bans that were put against him, and then a 7th one technically as a pick. He ends up getting Cerberus that game as a support, and he carried that game. And it's just like, I asked him in the interview, I said, how does it feel that you had so many targets? Like, I don't know why they're doing it. It's kind of tilting, honestly. Like, stop making me go so far down and still end up losing. Like, why are you doing this? But one thing that doesn't have to go too far down the draft is the Najah that gets left open for the Kings, and then Khepri Pele for the Solar Scarabs. So very similar top 2, top 3 kind of out of these teams so far.
Yeah, no, really similar picks. The Khepri Pele, I think, is a nice kind of combination that works well together. They kind of showcased it a bit last game. I think they executed it pretty well. I'm totally okay with them going back to it. It also takes away the Khepri from Genetics, possibly. I'm curious about what he goes to. These are definitely the top 4 gods I would imagine him picking: Khepri, Yemoja, Cabrakan, and Ymir. So I am not sure. I know we just talked about going deep in his god pool, but I'm not sure what he's going to be looking for here now that all of those are gone. I mean, knowing Genetics, it could be something, a little quirky. It could be something a little bit more meta. It looks like they're going to hold his pick for now, and they're going to go back to the Cupid, which I think makes sense, especially after it looked so good last game.
So with 5 supports taken away between the bans and the single pick so far, it would be Vulcan Cupid. So Vulcan was the one god that did get banned by the Scarabs in game number 1, got let through now for game 2. Artemis once again picked up to go up against the Cupid, deal with the counter matchup in that regard. So 3 of the 5 picks from the Scarabs in the last game has made its way through. Could decide to go for the full run back for themselves. Meanwhile, again, going to have to change up a little bit for the Camelot Kings. And I wonder if it's going to be more support bans against Genetics. Like you were saying, pretty much the top supports of the meta right now. I think the only other ones that maybe come to mind would be Terra. Could be a possibility. I wonder if the Solar Scarabs will ban that one away.
Yeah, Terra is definitely a good shout. That is definitely a pick that Genetics likes. Apparently he doesn't think it's as good as I thought that he thought it was. If that makes sense. I just thought he valued it a bit higher, but I guess he doesn't mind it potentially getting banned away here. What I do want to point out is I'm actually really happy the Scarabs go back to their draft from game 1. Like I mentioned, it was mostly just some gameplay mistakes, maybe some macro mistakes. I'm glad they still have confidence in their draft. I think if they executed a bit better, things could end very differently for them. They did ban the Terra, so that's a great shout. But what next? I was already struggling to come up with the Terra, so yeah. What's next in Genetics God Pool? I'm sure the Scarabs are wondering the same. Horus, maybe that's a good ban as well. I think it looks okay with their team comp. They already have a lot of beats for us, and Horus is great at that. They're going to ban Sobek. I cannot imagine a world where he would have picked that, but if I'm the Scarabs, I'm also curious about what he's going to pick, so I guess Sobek is what they decide to take away, probably for a similar reason for Beats Force, but I do think the Horus is a good shout, so maybe Genetics will go for that pick.
Good beats pressure, good Manticore Spikes user as well with the Sobek. Not too many things that can go wrong with a pick like that. Kukulkan once again banned away from Baronic. We'll see if we get another ban towards the mid laner there. Last time around it was the Merlin picked up, at least for the mid laner of the Solar Scarabs. Not sure if Baronic will want to go back towards that pick. The only other one that's still waiting out would be Scary D's pick. The Hades has made its way through until now, which has been banned away, so we will see at least one new look over for the Solar Scarabs. I was wondering if the Hades was going to make it through for the Scarabs to pick up again, or maybe if Variety was going to try and snag that for himself. Now that it is gone, that kind of opens up the door for a lot more picks. Not a lot of fun things to play into Hades, anything with a channeled style ability. Now it opens up the door for things like King Arthur, Kukulkan, Ardio, all those kinds of things maybe come to mind for Variety.
Guan is open as well.
True.
And we have not seen any Guan. A lot of top 3 bans lately, so Guan could be something that people can look for. I know Scary likes Guan too. Hades might be a less favorable matchup for him too, so I'd like to see a Guan personally. I think he's a very strong character. I wonder if this is just not a character that these teams play. I almost forgot that he was open because I'm so used to him being banned.
Right.
So we'll see if Scary does go for that pick. Yeah, I'm not sure. Baronic needs a pick too as well. I'm not really sure. You might have had a good shot with him going back to the Merlin. I'm not sure what else he looks for. Maybe teams have fallen off the Yu Huang now. No one has really picked him so far, at least today. So they could really go for a lot of stuff. Well, there he is. They're going to go for him now. And they're going to wait for last pick for their solo lane. So that's probably a smart thing to do if they're just going to pick Yu Huang anyway, regardless of what the Kings pick. So I think that's a good decision by them. And then I guess we're going back to the Kings. What do you think they're going to be looking for here?
Yeah, for sure. The front line is the main thing that they're missing, so Genetics and Variety definitely going to have to pick up their gods. Horus was one that I kind of alluded to before. That was kind of a signature pick for Genetics more than anything. Good at using the spikes as well, which is something that when we had Aurora in the studio, kind of doing a tier list of some of the supports, was talking about a lot of gods that if they're good at using spikes, probably a decent pickup to go kind of no matter what. There's some gods that definitely go at it better than other ones, definitely ones you would pick more inside of like a solo queue rank than you would in a more competitive style. And obviously variety, still missing that pick as well, unless this Naja ends up being something spicy somewhere else. I think you made a great call out for the Guan Yu for how consistently it's been banned really good with those Fabless tubes. So the Kings are definitely taking their time to go through. Will be the Horus locked in. We've seen it go solo before, but doesn't seem like it's something for variety. Whenever I see Genetics on a team, I'm always seeing that one to go him.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes back to the tier as well. He goes for the Ardio, actually, which is actually pretty interesting. I suppose it's just so they could get a better split on their damage, since their only magical was Vulcan, so I figured they wanted variety to go for, you know, some magical damage as well, and I guess Ardio is his choice. Scarabs going to go for Robin. Is that Robin solo? I assume so.
I imagine so. Now, we haven't seen the Robin solo in a while, or really Robin much in general. We saw a little bit of jungle at one point from him. But it felt like whenever the Lona's Mask got taken from a standard item and put more towards a starter, that's kind of where it felt like the fall off of Robin comes through. Do you kind of share that same regard where now the Lona's Mask isn't readily available with another starter to him, that it kind of makes him a little bit weaker in that role?
Yeah, I mean, when I think of Robin in a tank role, I kind of think the only thing he really brings to the table is just being really tanky. He doesn't have a lot of CC. He doesn't have as much base damage as some other, you know, competitors for the same role. So with that Lona's Mask before, which has now been changed, he was incredibly tanky. But now, like you mentioned, that it's gone, I don't really know how he serves as a solo laner. Maybe he'll go for a more damage-oriented build. Maybe it'll be Robin jungle and Pele solo. I'm not sure. I wouldn't think so, but I'm not really sure. The Robin pick has kind of thrown me for a loop here.
Yeah, and when we look at kind of at these compositions, you know, Robin's going to be probably next to impossible for an Ardio to kill. Naja having at least some ways the gap closed in there, but 2 ways for Robin to kind of escape. So it feels like the solo lane might kind of get left alone in this match, where at least in the early stages of last game, kind of towards the mid, that's where a little bit more of that pressure was built. So if you are the Scarabs, you're on this Pele, you're looking kind of up the opposite way of the Camelot Kings, where at least should Sam kind of maybe put some of that priority on this Pele?
I think he should just continue playing around Jark. Around Jark the Shark, if you will, on the Khepri. I think that Khepri is really pivotal to the Khepri to be able to just kind of like dive bomb in and know that, you know, he can get as much damage as he wants off, and he's got that Khepri ult coming. So as long as they stay as a unit this game, whether they be in solo, mid, or duo, I think they'll succeed. That's what they did last game. I'd like to see him run that kind of play style back.
And then for the Solar Scarabs, now having this Robin kind of moving over, what we're going to at least assume is kind of more in this tank style of play towards the solo lane. Don't think they're going to see Pele make that rotation over there. That'd be the only other one, at least in my mind, right out the gate, that would kind of swap over to the solo. So for this Robin, you know, kind of how does the team fight play out for a Robin in this case? Is it one where he's diving in and keeping the backliners out? Is it one where he's trying to help, you know, maybe dive with the assassin and find these picks?
Yeah, I think it's going to be very build-based. So if he goes more damage-oriented, I think he's going to be looking to find isolated carries. I think if he's more tank-oriented, he's going to be looking to just be more of an initiator and just trying to go before the other team goes, basically, whether he gets on the carries or not. I imagine he's going to go for more of a tank build, so he's probably just going to be ulting in and trying to buy space for his Pele to kind of, you know, do that dive bomb thing I talked about earlier, where she can just do a ton of damage and solo everyone by herself in the team fight. That's what I'm guessing their game plan is going to be. Hard to say without seeing the builds, but he does have some options.
Well, we'll see if the Solar Scarabs can bring it back and take us to a Game 3. But before we can get there, we got to jump into game number 2 with the Kings and the Scarabs. And one more time, we'll throw it over to Gormizer and Trelli-Relli.
I think so much one more time, at least, J-Mac, as we go into game number 2. See if the Kings can seal the deal here with a 2-0, or if the Scarabs have something for a surprise. You could hear it on the desk. Curry was talking about the fact that this is a very good draft for the Scarabs. Going back to some of the things that were successful for them, Trelli, and specifically going back because it wasn't the draft necessarily that was faltering. It was just some of the play on field to see if they can maybe clean that up. Unfortunately, you'd get some really good things on the side of the Kings as well, right? Varieties on this Ardio, Twigs back on the Naja, but now you got a Vulcan in the mix. It feels like they stepped up to match what the Scarabs are bringing.
Yeah, Netroid also on the Cupid, BMT gets the Vulcan let through. There's a lot to dial in on here. For what the Camelot Kings are trying to do in Genetics. One of his signature picks, one of the very first picks he ever played when he first joined the SPL, was this Horus, and for good reason. The man knows how to take his team to the skies. It looks like not only is there some aggression on the left side, but also on the right side of the map. Scary D getting real low.
Oh, Variety so low, though. Scary D does get first blood. Now they're looking to turn it around, maybe find a 2 for Twigs. One hit away but Sam can't get under the tower. Variety dead, respawned, teleports back in, and now they might have the turnaround potential. Bear form is there, but you're only level 1 if you're Variety. Twig,
that wave is huge.
Too low, and the wave, yeah, is massive. And so a lot of aggression, but immediate kickstart for the Scarabs. First blood to Scary D.
I was gonna say, if Variety tries to fight into that wave, the archers alone are gonna solo him. Like it was a stack up of 2 waves of archers. Captain Twig. Probably smart to just back up here, but actually getting aggressive, and here comes Sam for Soccer from the back again. I don't think the Captain Twig's winning this trade.
There's the sash that helped out starting things off, but no, it's Twig who goes down, and then a root on top of it. Scary D stays alive. 2 kills for him, 2 assists for Sam, and they might just work on making it 3. They are chasing Variety down to the ends of the map. Not quite enough damage. The tower line is safety for Variety. The healing is there. You got to be careful, though, if you are the King solo laner. This lane has not been clean for him in the first few minutes.
I mean, how many? I'm just going to say the
first 2 minutes, not even few.
This is the second time we've seen Captain Twig fall for first blood after some overwhelming aggression on the Naja. So I guess it's not the worst thing in the world. However, Variety also gets sucked in. So now you got 2 deaths very early on from the Camelot Kings. Notably, at least your buff spawns are going to be fine. You know, you didn't miss too much of the wave because of the teleport. So I think golden XP-wise is not going to be the biggest deal, but at the very least, you know, golden hand, the itemization changes that we're about to see. Sam for Soccer. They didn't get any of those kills. He got the assist, so it's Scary D who's going to be 2-0 on this Robin. We had some questions about, you know, how good would the Robin fare, you know, from an even state with a tank-style build. But once that Blackthorn Hammer gets built, I think Scary D's probably going to be swinging for at least a little bit.
And it's one thing, when you have a Robin in this game, even when he's equal, you get to the late game and man, he just feels so unkillable, right? You get mitigations on the ult, but then we get this build that it's not quite what we saw, what was that, like 3, 4, 5 months ago, where there was Robins that were quite literally unkillable.
With Sigil and
But
Lonos,
it's incredibly close to that kind of area, that territory. And so we'll have to keep our eyes on Scary D as this goes on. Level 5 already for him. Level 4 for the duo lane. Trying to keep our eyes on where exactly maybe the next bit of aggression will come down. I'm also keeping a little spot in mid, right? Because if Twig gets his ult, that comboed with a Vulcan ult should be a guaranteed kill. It's just going to be difficult, right? Baronic has inbuilt CC immunity and also has beads on top of that. So a lot of escapable and survivability for them over in mid. So maybe it'll be duo. Who knows? Maybe they'll go back for solo and double dip, I guess triple dip, since they've already got 2 kills over there. As level 5 starts to tick through for most of the map.
Wow, I'm surprised that Scary D, he already used the Mystic Rush. I was going to say, did not go for the ult there. Trying to get aggressive in lane, using that lead, and just trying to push it ever further. Definitely the smart call. But Captain Twig is not one to let a little bit of early aggression stop from trying to find the ganks. Dueling Dragons out, but Captain Twig just sort of walks past them at that point. So Veronica going to be down an ultimate for the time being. Either way, I don't think just getting stopped 0-1 is ever going to, you know, thwart the aggression of the Camelot Kings. That's not enough to let that dial back. Look at Nezro just navigating those 2 traps every single time. Just wiggles between them, back pedals. I'm already going to get caught out, but he knows the positioning of them to the T.
One of them now has moved. I was going to say that's going to be what happens. He's going to get so used to that exact pathing, and Stu will just move one slightly left or slightly right, and it'll ruin everything. And that's how Netrioid will die. Instead, Stu, well, the traps get moved around. Stu will find a different way to maybe find that kill later on. What a great start for the Scarabs, though. 1,000 gold, 5 minutes in. Feels like a really, really good way to build a foundation. And the Kings doing exactly what the Kings like to do. Things didn't go the way maybe they wanted it to early on, so they have slowed it down. Variety, though, in a little bit of trouble. There's a good route. There's an ult from Sam.
Wow.
Mystic Rush is trying to predict Variety, but not able to find it. Variety goes for the route, looking for the healing.
Are you kidding me?
And he walks out of that one alive. Absolutely insane. 2 ults down for the Scarabs, and Variety with hardly any help.
I mean, I gotta break that one down. So was holding the dash because he wanted to make sure that he bit Sam for Soccer. Once he bit Sam for Soccer, dashes. If it doesn't go into the tower in the Mystic Rush, dashes away. Immediately cancels the dash, turns around, and starts the health siphon to keep Sam for Soccer in combat. If Sam blinks, he's dead anyways, but he just immediately said, I'm gonna do damage to you really quick. Okay, and now I'm out. This is a great play by Variety, really putting on a show of mechanics there. Down 0-1, but another kill would have been disastrous. And the teleport was back up, so didn't miss too much of the wave either. Got to give shouts out. Depending on where Captain Twig is now, I want to see some more aggression. Currently sitting in mid for the time being, so not really looking for any sort of ganks, but is on the way over towards the left side of the map where Stuart, and there's a Scarabs Blessing available as long as Yark is going to be on point here. So there shouldn't be, you know, an invade happening anytime soon, but I still like to see wherever Captain Twig is on the map.
Yeah, all the beads up on the left side of the map, plus you still have Tusky, and like you said, the Scarabs Blessing there for hardcore, so it's going to be difficult. Genetics loves these plays, man. And, you know, if it works for you, it works for you. Up into the sky goes Sam, comes crashing down into the Vulcan ult, and there's the 1-2 combo. Twig, credit for the kill, but Tings throwing his damage out there. That is what you have to be wary of if you are a Scarabs player. Beads, any sort of CC immunity, anything that goes down. That's the danger. On the other side, Twig now making the rotation over to Solo. Goes for Scaredy. Again, no ult for Twig here. Does maintain the sash, but does not have the capability or maybe the trust to try and get it with the tower line there, plus the rotation from the Capri. Slows things down over in Solo.
Yeah, it's possible that either the rotation was spotted out or Captain Twig didn't feel as if the dive was going to net the kill in that situation, so getting Mystic Rush down going to be the win there. Unfortunate for Variety, that blue buff was taken away by Scary D, the 2-0 Robin, and you're going to be without some MP5 for the time being, as well as the fact that hasn't finished that breastplate yet. The CDR department is hurting a little bit, but at least the Camelot Kings are on the board. Great peel by Genetics there to make sure that BMT does not get knocked up there. Probably could have resulted in some more aggression because BMT had the beads at those last mid-camp spawn. Any damage there would have been pretty disastrous. So a great peel from the Horus. Genetics makes sure that the red buff goes down as well for Big Man Tings. And we're seeing some more aggression on the left side of the map. This time Yark getting the focus by some damage.
Yeah, isolated already. Scarab's Blessing still available. Hasn't been used. There is going to be the proc. But the Kings are moving forward. Genetics tries to predict it. Lands with it. There's going to be the timeout. Ult is good from Big Man Tings. And from downtown, he gets the shot. And they kill off the Scarab.
Yeah, I kept looking for the lineup. I was like, where is this ult going to be sent to? Not too much mobility there for Yark and a huge target at that. So pretty good chance that ult was either going to zone Yark into backing up towards them or guarantee the kill. That time, going to be the kill. So now 2 kills on the board for the Camelot Kings. Still a little bit behind gold-wise, and I imagine most of that got to be on Scary D for the time being, just because of the 2 kills and the blue buff consistently being invaded. But now Sam for Soccer on the way over as well, trying to get aggressive on a Captain Twig in his own jungle.
Yeah, Twig, no ult, nothing to really work with here. Needs the help from his team. Great stun by Variety. Creates a little bit of space, but not enough to get Twig out alive. Still enough to be able to find the kill. Twig gets credit for it from the grave. Now Baronic isolated, locked down, killed off Variety. Puts one on the board for himself, and now continuing the chase. Scary D, no Mystic Rush, just the in-built survivability route should be coming through from Variety. And now they are isolated, nothing to work with. Double kill for the solo laner, and a 5-3 lead now for the Kings.
Yeah, Yark didn't have the ultimate there, was trying to peel as best as he really could, but it's a 1v3 situation, and if you abduct there aggressively, you're probably ending up on the chop and block as well. BMT gonna send the Earthshaker over to make sure that red buff gets confirmed. This is just how clinical the Camelot Kings are, making sure to take just every little bit of farm. Wouldn't be surprised. Oh, the ult is going to catch out Netroid here, but Stuart not looking too healthy either.
Yeah, Netroid able to find some shots. There's going to be Sam, though. Sam turns this one around. Genetics just trying to get out of here. Has to play this carefully. Right into a trap.
Oh, that'll get you.
Unfortunate for him that he's not able to find the kill. Stuart barely lives through that one. If Sam's not there, doesn't live through that one. Instead, it's Netroid. So great play by the jungler. Prior Worlds MVP Sam for Soccer, able to come in and make something happen for his team after what was a relatively catastrophic loss, I would call it, on Riot.
Yeah, not the greatest, but it's going to be just fine looking at the goal lead finally in favor of the Camelot Kings after we saw just how much they were able to steal away. You know, it's never just the kill for the Camelot Kings. It's never just the team fight. It's always what are they going to get after the fact, and that time it's just that, you know, using Vulcan's turret, BMT is able to clear out the wave, get a 2-level lead over Baronic, and now guess what? That same turret is going to chunk down this Pyromancer before anyone from the Scarabs can get even close. You know, it's incredible the fact that Scary D goes off to like a 3-0 start and still loses his tower by 10 minutes, is 2 levels down, and Variety is actually bullying him between where the towers would be if it was still up at this point.
so wild how quickly a lane can change.
Yep.
Hey, we started 2-0. You know, Scary D was able to get clean kills within 2 minutes of the game. All falls apart, just like it's fallen apart, unfortunately, there for Netroid. The dominance has been finished, much like last game here on the Cupid. One was aggressive, one death was aggressive on the purple buff for him. This one, that was just old-fashioned in lane. Unfortunately, a lot of pain brought to him. Back into the grayscale after the respawn, so it's going to take a little while before he can get back, and that's going to give a small advantage towards Stewart.
You know what they say, no pain in lane, no game, and Moronic is getting tons of pain in lane.
Yeah.
Does have to beat to get to the sky. Earthshaker is off the mark, but that means Variety gets credit for that one. A great kill onto the mid laner.
One of the rarest times we can call a zoning ult a proper zoning ult. Like, that was exactly a you can't stand here ult. Not often we get to say that, and it's not sarcastic.
Yeah, usually it's sarcasm. Like, oh, that's a yikes. We'll call it a zoning ult. That time around,
it was actually a zoning.
Actually did zone and gives credit to Variety. That's one of the most annoying interactions because you Huang, you expect your CC immune, but to go up into that celestial flight, you can't be crippled. So great rotation by Variety, forcing the beads out of Baronic, and also just way too much damage even before going up into that celestial flight. So that's going to be a pretty great target. Here's another good target. It's going to be Scary D. Immediately using the overhead kick, but could be in some more trouble.
This has very Yule 2-0 us, but then what? Energy from the Kings, right? They're coming over, just making sure he understands where things are. Mystic Rush to get away. So Scary D stays alive. They're trying to force some relics over there. Blink's still up for Twig as well as the ult. And with Tings just getting his back, you got to keep your eyes on where that Naja is. Anywhere on the map is pretty much in danger. Just hanging around Baronic. Doesn't seem to be the place they're going to isolate this. Tings making an interesting rotation over. Going to get the backfire onto Hardcore. And the meatball. Did not do a lot of damage, though. And you have to look at it. Well, and it pops the bubble as well, right? Feels really good. Forces it back. Starts up the Gold Fury. And they have the secure in the bag with this ultimate. So the King's able to get that one. Hardcore still here. Genetics gonna ult out with himself and Netroid. Instead, they're gonna turn this on to Hardcore, force the Scarabs blessing, lock him in place, find the kill, get Genetics out anyway, maybe even take Sam up into the sky. No, the beads are too good from the jungler. Sam is gonna walk away. Variety's made the rotation in, slowing down a few. The Scarabs look like they want to fight this one. Genetics is low, so is Netroid. Good meatball for the disengage. The King's just trying to get out. They get one, they get the Fury, and they're done.
Scary D has ult here. Look at all these low health targets. Not going to be sent out. Purple buff will be confirmed for net. And this is just how quickly the Camelot Kings can turn a game on its head. As I said, 3-0 in favor of Scary D. No longer the case. Variety has tons of XP, about 4K gold, give or take. Close to 6,000 experience in favor of the Camelot Kings. Just superior map play and just all-around knowledge of where all the farm can be, where they can push their leads. Almost never overextending. I mean, 0-2 for Netroid. He was, a little bit too far trying to get aggressive on the Stewart, and Sam Soccer came over and caught him out a few times. Besides that, though, I mean, Tings has been a farm machine. Variety, after that first death, has not really been misplaying at all since this time. He's been having some clutch rotations as well. It's really starting to add up here. Wouldn't be surprised if the Camelot Kings sit by the wayside for a bit until that Pyromancer spawns back in where they can get aggressive once again.
Now it comes down. I was going to say to question marks, where do the Kings go, right? Pyromancer's going to come up soon instead. It's Variety bullying Sam Soccer in the jungle. And the rest of his teams on the other side of the map does not have any backup, but keeping 3 Scarabs to his side. Vulcan's going to make the rotation over. Sam's low. There's the Earthshaker, just a little wide. Not going to be able to find the kill onto one, but he finds the kill anyway onto Sam. The backfire damage, too much to handle. Nice little knock up with the meatball. Twig is coming over as well. Has ult, has blink. Go for Baronic. Sash is not going to connect there. He's going to let that one fall to the wayside. Magma Bomb gets a knock up onto Scary D. Just keeping things going for the Kings.
I mean, Sam Soccer kills Variety there if BMT does not just hit all of his damage onto that Pele. Just great peel in the form of, I'm going to kill you. Like, I'm going to peel for you, but don't worry. Like, it's not by my Magma Bomb. I'm not going to create any space. I'm just going to simply kill the Pele. So 2 and 3 falls the jungler of the Solar Scarabs, and another one goes over to Big Man. Ting's going to sit at 3-0 on this Vulcan. Going into a Staff of Mirrodin. This build is really coming online here. I think that when those Earthshakers zone, or if they don't zone, it doesn't really matter. Tons of damage coming out from this Vulcan. Not quite passing up Scary D yet, though. Still very close. Just like one more ability hit will finally put that Robin down, but at the moment, still carrying the team.
It's just going to be like one stray magma bomb, too. It's
Or
not
like
going
a
to be
turret
anything
shot,
flashing.
yeah.
He's just going to like throw it over the wall, accidentally hit somebody, and it'll put him over the top. What is that, 400 gold? Or gold? How about damage? Separating these two teams, or those two players. 4,000 gold separating these two teams. The Kings trying to make it a little bit more than that. Pyromancer taken up, locked down, killed off. And that's going to be easy money in the pockets for the Kings. Now the only thing left on the map for a couple of minutes is going to be the Fire Giant. Early call for the FG last time around. Now you got a Vulcan way better secure than the Scarabs have. Something they're going to have to keep their mind on and be aware of. So watch the ward vision, I would argue, over the next few minutes.
Yeah, definitely, and also pay attention to where these ADCs decide to rotate. Netroid came over for the Pyro, but didn't quite feel confident enough to pull the FG 16 minutes in. I'd give it 3 to 4 more minutes before the Camelot Kings try to make a play like that. 1.5 more items, even just like a tier 1 at this point, and it's like, okay, now we can go for that sort of damage. It doesn't look like any sort of brake pedal, right? It looks like the Camelot Kings are going in for the tier 1 tower. Netroid's going to tank that one up as that finishes off. And actually, grouping towards the fire. I lied. 3-4 minutes, more like 1 to 2 minutes, and that FG's going to start pull right now.
I'm impressed, because honestly, I felt the exact same way about you. 16 minutes, the minute you called that out, I was like, oh, this felt like way later in the game. No, it is burned down quick. Not a single Scarab to be seen. You don't even need the ult from Big Man Tings. That is a great call from the Kings. They get themselves the Fire Giant. And now they have a very controlling lead. What was a few thousand just a few minutes ago has now escalated, bloomed to 6K, and they're going to continue that push. Losing a tier 1 on left, but gaining a tier 2 on right, and a lot of pressure.
Stewart is going to grab the tier 1 tower over and left. They'll get a little bit of extra gold in hand. Immediately matched back by the Camelot King. Going to say, we'll go for the tier 2. Guess what? If you don't back like yesterday, this tower, this Phoenix, I should say, it's also going to go down. Scary D, the only one here. Bracer gets dropped. And pop the frenzy as well. This is getting shredded.
Yeah, the Phoenix, just a few more autos is all it'll take. They're going to get that one. And there's a big Earthshaker. Gets Stewart for a lot of damage, but they just get out of there. They wanted the bird. They didn't want the fight. They're going to take what they can get. 3 ults dropped down by the Scarabs as well. And in the meantime, Twig has managed to save the tier 1 in mid on top of all of that. So gold in the pockets of the Kings and taken away from the Scarabs.
Yep, and now time to group back up. Hey, there's an Oni Fury spawning back in. And that's exactly where the Camelot Kings are heading. They're happy with that Phoenix, but they're going to continue pushing that gold lead ever forward and grab this Oni Fury in the meantime. While that's happening, San Francisco trying to hit some more power spikes, going to push up some of those fire minions, steal away some of the Camelot Kings jungle over and right. There are some massive XP differentials here, but you know, jungle's looking relatively even, 16 to 16. BMT 3 levels up on a Veronic. That's going to be pretty rough to try and fight into, right? That's essentially a full staff of Mirrodin ahead is this Vulcan, and it's only going to keep climbing. There's a couple more towers on board that the Camelot Kings would like to take down, put that golden pocket, and I imagine upgrade starter items coming pretty soon as well for Big Man Tings and Big Man Tings alone, because no one else is even close to upgrading a starter item. I mean, 2 levels for variety, 3 levels for genetics. It's going to take a bit, but that left side Phoenix, I mean, this is a questionable call. I was going to say, there's still grouping here. This isn't like 3 members of the Scarabs haven't back yet. It's just 4 members of the Scarabs, and San Francisco's on the way. So definitely the smart call to back it up and go for that tier 2 instead.
Gold begets gold. So more money lying in the pockets of the Kings. Still a minute 45 on the power play with this Fire Giant buff. Wherever they decide to put that pressure is really up to them. Genetics has ult. Everybody has ult. But the disengage has been used more often than not for the Kings there with their support player. Like you said, worst case scenario is you back and spend all this money you just earned. Best case scenario, you get a Phoenix here as well. Already right side fell down, left side taking a half health relatively fast. Netroid getting the shots out there, dashes backwards. The Phoenix remains around half HP. Variety has to sustain back up. Some potions behind you, man. Yeah, there you go. Pick them up. Maybe re-engage. Sam is left off to the wayside. Twig's maybe going to find him. Goes for the sash. Maybe be looking for the solo kill. Instead, it's going to be a kill on the Netroid. Scary D goes deep, and now the Kings just trying to get out of there. Have to use Genetics ult to disengage, but now with Twig back in the fray, up into the sky goes Scary D, crashing down into the Earthshaker. No, they don't have the follow-up. The damage is not enough. Hardcore saves him with his life, and Sam finds a nice surgical precision ult, but still eats a shot from Vulcan. And it's a 2-for-1 trade favoring the Scarabs defense.
Yeah, but it looks like still pushing are the Camelot Kings. Surprisingly, 4v3, they recognize, hey, someone's got to go back and clear that wave, and that means one of these Phoenixes could be pressured for the time being. I don't imagine it goes down, though. No ADC to be found. There's no more kills. It would be like 12 Vulcan autos. It wouldn't even be half health at that point. I just don't think it's going to be the best idea. So now the Camelot Kings still have that back, by the way, from when they did end up getting all that gold. So it'd be nice if they could just spend some of that gold they accumulated, then group up for the Fire Giant push that's going to be happening here in about a minute. The buff just falls off right about now. So a little bit of extra farm in hand. Those starter items are starting to get purchased. Like I said, there's going to be BMT, a massive upgrade coming soon.
And he's got 2K.
Yeah, and then he should be able to just get some more vision down on the right side of the map and rinse and repeat. Get the Fire Giant, head for that left lane. Right Phoenix is spawning back in though, so if you're a Solar Scarabs fan, Scary D was able to find some picks there. Semper Soccer gets a pick as well. Some good damage. The defense, certainly not bad. And as long as Yarkor can save that Scarab's Blessing for the Windfire Wheels, there is a chance. There's a small ray of being able to actually res before BMT lands that Earthshaker, where you can make that combo not worth anything. At the moment, it's very difficult to rely on that.
You had called it out, though. Pendulum of the Ages picked up, as well as a Magic Focus there, tier 1. For big man teams. Male Renewal, Compassion, finished off for Genetics. Big back for the two, I guess, highlighted players from the Kings in this case. Fire Giant's going to be spawning back up. They're not even waiting for it to be here.
Yeah,
Metroid's already throwing the autos out there.
The turret's there too. They're ready. The second that touches down, they're going to just delete it.
And why? I mean, why not? Look at where the Scarabs are. You got your dual lane. It is in the dual lane. They're way on the other side of the map. Nobody is here to contest this. Would it have even been worth the fight? I mean, do you see the Scarabs making this defense with the FG, especially now that Genetics is taking the team in?
I think the turret's going to be brought in as well with that ultimate, so that's going to be a pretty quick Phoenix drop. I don't think there was too much follow-up there for the Scarabs. Are they going to look for the fight after the fact? Quick disengage tells us no. Semper Soccer still in that mid lane, so wasn't back to try and help out. Possibly might go over to the left side and try and grab a tier 2 in the meantime, just because there's got to be a little bit of vision on that side of the map. I think all of the Camelot Kings walked over that ward, so haven't reset fully after getting that FG. That left Phoenix is still the prize the Camelot Kings are after, but it looks like they're going to dial it back. Genetics goes back to base first. We'll see that full regroup and then another seed. And honestly, Igor, with how calculated the Kings play, I would not be surprised if we are waiting until To the Skies is back up. Genetics takes a full wave, and whichever Phoenix the Scarabs are stacked at, they just go to the other one, and it just goes down instantly.
Yeah, they got to get them back up there first, though, right? Make sure they're within range. It was a good clear from the Scarabs pushing up the left-hand side just to make sure that it would be a little more complicated. Primal Fury is about to respawn. And what, you've got a little under 3 minutes left on the power play. Plenty of time to work with here if you're the Kings, trying to find another Phoenix. 11,000 gold in the lead. 7,300 experience separating those who are still trying to hit level 20 on the side of the Scarabs. And surprisingly, it is still quite a few players, right? Only one on the side of the Kings, and that's Genetics waiting to hit that mark. Some nice little traps thrown out there by Stewart. A lot of positions. Where do you go if you're the Kings here? I mean, I like what your call was earlier, where Genetics could maybe just pull a wave with him, but where else are you trying to split your focus?
I mean, I do like the 4-1 split here with Captain Twig. I don't imagine trying to get too aggressive on the Semper Soccer because the Magi's is up. You know, sashing into that point pretty much guarantees that you're going to lose the 1v1. Genetics is back for a reason, though. I imagine just waiting to see when that ultimate comes back up, looking for some aggression. It looks like actually has taken up the team here, and they're going to the back.
They're going for Sam. No, they're going for the Titan. They just want the in, and they've got the damage to do it. They go straight through the Scarabs, and they find themselves a 2-0 victory. What a great ult from Genetics, and a great play from the Kings.
I mean, when I said they're going for the back, I assumed they were going behind the Phoenix to fight, but Genetics was like...
I thought they were going for Sam.
Genetics was like, we have Bracer, we have Frenzy, and we have tons of damage. Let's simply end the game. And look at Twig. He feels bad. Twig feels bad about
Does
what
he feel
just
bad?
did.
It looks like utter disappointment on his face. That's a man who just won.
I mean, I think he feels bad about what he just did. He's like, guys, did we really just to the skies backdoor him? Yeah, you did, and it looked good. I mean, that Titan died very quickly. They could have just like waited. You know, Tusky could have been a play. There's a couple different things they could have waited for at that Titan room, but you got to keep that
I was
guy alive.
so prepped for a fight. I was like, okay, they're going to pick Sam here, immediately go left, try to take a 5v4, go for a nope. Just completely surpassed like the late game siege. And look, you get one Phoenix. The fire minions had gotten in there a little bit earlier, so the Titan wasn't necessarily too healthy. Already took all the towers. Might as well go for it.
Yeah, I mean, when you're feeling that confident, you've got the relic.
That caught me off guard so fast.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the old. I was watching the Horus like fly, and I was like, okay, the old behind the Phoenix trick. I've seen this one before, and it was like, nah, we just wanted the Titan.
They just wanted the Titan. They got the Titan. It's a 2-0 win here for the Kings, but you don't got to take it from us. We're going to throw it back to the desk to break it down.
I think you guys did a pretty good job of it there. I mean, we have the benefit of watching that from the overhead perspective, and I think it still even caught us off guard. So definitely for the Solar Scarabs, not expecting an ultimate, a Horus crash to jump themselves right in. But, I mean, Hurry, it was something that I was kind of joking to you about, you know, over in the green room, which was this just feels like it's old school E-United genetics Horus style of play. Get in, drop the Phoenix down, ult, get yourselves out, get somewhere else. Or in this case, use it for a backdoor to just take the Titan and end the game.
Genetics is so smart, seriously. He also, I mean, he went Shoguns and he went Bracer and Frenzy, so you knew, you had to know he had something up his sleeve,
so
building
dirty.
all of that. He just loves it, man. I mean, he's good. I mean, it's a good play. It's a smart play. Like even we're sitting here like from spectator. I'm watching like, what is he setting up for? He's by himself on the Bracer. For some reason, it didn't even occur to me that they could end the game. So I guess he's just that smart, isn't he?
He was just able to do that, and then you saw the look at the end from Captain Twig. He was just like, did we really just do that? Did we seriously just ult to their Titan and win the game with basically no fight back there? It started off really well for the Scarabs, though. We cannot discount what the Scarabs were able to make, at least in the early starts. Immediately jumped itself, get that first couple of kills there. Before we talk about the remainder of that game, we do have Charlie Relly standing by for a post-game interview.
Well, hello, SMITE fans. I am joined with the Camelot Kings after that convincing W, and they had just smiles all around from everyone. You know what? I'm going to talk to Genetics first, and actually, we might only have time to talk to Genetics at this point. I just want to talk to you about that end call there because, you know, from the caster point of view, I saw where Horus was flying, and I was like, okay, so maybe you guys are going around back. You're looking for the you guys were just completely confident in your ability to end there, right? There was no way that you weren't dropping that Titan.
Yeah, so we got Vulcan turret and we had Bracer and Frenzy, which is pretty good. Because the thing about Horus is like when you go for that end there, the reason why you go through that way is because Horus ult shows on Phoenix. If you go through Phoenix, you have to go through like in between different base structures.
So just complete confidence there. There was never a call to go for the Phoenix. You guys knew you had the damage to end. I also wanted to ask, you know, I was going to ask Variety, but I'll just ask you at this point. You know, Twig and Variety both die early on in that lane. Scary D was looking a little fed. The Robin was looking a little scared. Were you guys ever worried, like, is this RDO ever going to get online? And you guys always knew he was going to get farmed back in?
No, those two feed every game and they still win. It honestly is like it's just a passive at this point. They both just die, so.
And I got one more question at this point. Twice Naja, twice First Blooded. Are we hanging this pick up, or was that's just a Twig diff?
Go again. See you next week.
All right, that's been a very confident Camelot Kings, and we're going to throw it back to the desk.
Love the confidence on Genetics and the Camelot Kings. And, you know, kind of talking a little bit about that first blood that happened over there. You know, Captain Twig goes down for first. And then we didn't even get a chance to even, like, fully walk out of the studio. You know, we're putting our headsets down. We're walking out the door, walking out to the break room where all the players normally are hanging out. And we turn around and, oh, all right, first blood is done. Okay, well, something happened there. Let's go ahead and just, you know, grab a drink real quick, fill up some water, whatnot, turn around. Oh, they died again over there. So now Robin is 2-0. And then now suddenly Robin's 3-0. And I'm sitting here going, okay, we might be going to a game 3, and then all of a sudden, Variety is now 2 levels up, level 12 versus level 10. A tier 1 tower's already gone. Camelot Kings, I don't know how they keep doing it, but they just keep getting away with it, Hurry.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's almost like their comfort zone. I mean, you even hear them, you know, kind of making fun of each other a bit, but those early deaths, I mean, they matter, and, you know, against the wrong team comp, things can get out of control really fast, but you know, they don't let it get the best of them. They know how to work their way back in the game. You know, they let the other team make mistakes. Like, for example, this game, the Scarabs kind of overextended into their back camps, in my opinion, not over any really major objective. And kind of throw their lead away, you know. And if they're patient and they keep their head together, you know, stuff like that will happen. And I guess at this point they're used to it and trained for it. I guess those two are bound to be first blood, and it just doesn't matter.
And then saw this play time and time again from Genetics. Get in, get the Phoenix, get out, or ult in, get the Phoenix, and then everybody run back out. You mentioned with the Bracer and the Frenzy, and then I believe this was the game-ending call there as they walk right over the Bracer, pop the Frenzy with the turret around there, and it's an easy, clean end for the Camelot Kings. Not very bloody were these two games. I mean, we look back on game number 1, final score was 8-5. This one you saw there, 10-8. So low kill count games, but also somewhat shorter games, about 26 minutes apiece out there. And I think we got a good look as to why Big Man Tings isn't getting Vulcan very often anymore, 4-0 and 6 to kind of round out his slash line. And all these changes that have happened with Vulcan over the years, you know, his ult getting a little bit faster, doing a little bit more damage when it's closer to you, and now with all the other changes that have come this way, I'm finally glad we're getting to see Vulcan get a little bit more priority in the meta.
Yeah, I love Vulcan, man. He's so fun to watch. The ultimate is just so exciting. There's so many like funny turret plays that always end up happening whenever people pick Vulcan. I mean, that most recent change to stop him from being crippled, I guess, is all he needed because, I mean, he just looks fantastic, especially, you know, in a player like Big Man Ting's hands. So I'm happy to see him. You know, I'm not sad if he sticks around. I don't like playing against him in my personal games
for
very
sure.
much, because that turret is just so annoying. But he's a cool character, and I'm glad he's around, and, you know, hopefully he sticks around.
Some power farming out of Big Man Tings really in both of these games, kind of topping the 600-plus GPM, which is not an easy feat in the SMITE Pro League out there. Also top damage for his team by literally double or more than the next person on his team, 19,000. The next closest on his, 9,000 for a couple of players out there. So Big Man Tings definitely leading down the damage charts for his team. And the Camelot Kings find the 2-0 that they really did need to kind of get themselves back in the swing, back in the momentum after falling to the Jade Dragons last week. So impressive win by them. And unfortunate for the Solar Scarabs. Maybe a little bit back to the drawing board on some of the strategies, maybe get a little bit more internal discussion to kind of get those comms cleaned up. That way they can get that play on field maybe a little bit more up to par that we were expecting.
Yeah, no, they're you know, they're getting there. You know, you see the sparks, you see some things happening well. Their lanes are usually going pretty well, which is a good starting point. They just need to get their priorities straight, in my opinion. A little less fighty, a little less divey, clean it up a bit, and they'll be good to go.
Well, we'll see the Camelot Kings and the Solar Scarabs maybe a little bit later on. Let's take a look at the schedule, though, to see what you have missed today, because it was a rather quick day. I mean, it's only, 5 p.m. EST right now, and we've already got both of our sets done for today. The Valkyries and the Kings both find 2-0s over the Bolts and Scarabs, respectfully. We will see the Camelot Kings one more time later this week up against the Oni Warriors, our second set on Sunday. For the Solar Scarabs, at least, that's going to be the end of the road for their week. We'll see them back over in week number 3. Tune in tomorrow because we'll kick things off with the Tartarus Titans and the Valhalla Valkyries and Oni Warriors against the Jade Dragons, a match that everybody's going to be keeping their eyes on. The two undefeated teams so far as of our first week and a half of play at the moment. We'll see if the Oni Warriors can be the first team to put the L in the column for the Jade Dragons, but after the performance the Dragons have been having in their last couple of weeks, that is a very tall task to be said, even for a team like the Oni Warriors.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for the games, man. There's a lot of good matchups this week. Just tomorrow and the day after, we've got a lot of games that are going to be very telling for the future of these teams. I'm more than excited to see if the Dragons are going to keep their win streak alive. You know, I'm still good friends with a lot of those guys, and I know they're hype about how they've been doing. And, you know, I think we're all out here just wondering, you know, where they're going to go. Are they going to continue in form, show up to Worlds, and finally bring it home, or are they going to crash and burn like they did last year and the years before? So we'll see where they go. We'll see where the rest of everyone goes. Will be exciting next couple of days. And, yeah, let's look forward to it.
Yeah, and then as always, starting up on our Saturday, we're going to have the SCC to kind of kick things off. It'll be North America, if I'm not mistaken. Eldritch Hounds and Anansi Weavers will be the last of the SCC matchups for North America and the SCC for the weekend. And then 1 p.m., we'll be starting up all of our SPL stuff again. That one will be over there with the Titans and the Valhalla Valkyries. So make sure that you are tuning in tomorrow and Sunday for more SPL action on behalf of myself, Hurrywin, all the other casters, production, everyone behind the scenes. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow at 11.